The Australian wine industry is a billion-dollar enterprise. Collectively, it pays an annual tax bill of about $400 million. However, the industry is concerned that the federal government will introduce a new tax in next month's budget.
We have heard that there may be an increase in the existing sales tax, which presently stands at 20%. If you want to find a way of completely wrecking yet another Australian industry, this is a very good way of doing it.
Well, it all looks peaceful and idyllic, but according to some members of the medical fraternity, these fields also reap a bitter harvest. The Australian Medical Association says alcohol consumption is a costly burden on the community. It's arguing for a substantial increase in the tax on alcohol because it believes this would discourage excessive drinking.
The proportion of drinkers of alcohol that have a problem is less than 2%. We don't consider that increasing the price for the rest of the community is a way of overcoming that problem.
A spokesperson for the Minister for Primary Industries, Simon Crean, said she was unwilling to preempt the budget. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
There are 119 works on display in all, 8 of them by students in the Hunter region. The art covers all aspects of visual expression, from wearables and jewellery to sculpture, ceramics, printmaking, painting and photography.
This exhibition has been on the road since January now, and there are thousands of people who are now aware of the wonderful things that our students are achieving in the visual arts field.
There is no actual winner, but it's hard not to pick a favourite, like Wallsend High's Alison Sweeney with It Took Grandpa Ages.
My grandfather wouldn't have understood very much of what was in this exhibition. I don't think he would have wanted to either, and I think it's rather wonderful that Alison's grandfather has come to terms in some way.
When it comes to industriousness, few could top St Francis Xavier's Felicity Doyle, who built up 14 images in all of familiar things, although changed a little. 2 of them are on show.
Well, they're objects around the house that have been totally distorted into a design work. You can interpret it any way you want, that's what art is.
Craig Webb, on the other hand, settled on adding an extra dimension to the concept of the self-portrait.
It's kind of like a composition of a number of things, and that go together to symbolise my room, my life, my world.
Art Express will be open to the public at the University Great Hall from tonight.
A gusty wind made conditions tough for both players and spectators, and BHP Austral made the better of their opportunities to dominate the first half. But score they couldn't, with many a shot sailing over the top. However, just before half-time, the break they were after. Andy Roberts got a ball on to Namoff, and he made amends for a couple of near misses. From then on, it was one-way traffic, with the start of the new grandstand pole driving a signal for goal attack. Namoff's corner was beautifully flicked on by David Lowe, and BHP Austral led 2-0. Minutes later, Polonia's defence again crumbled, Jones' cross ending up at Nick Merida's feet. His shot was well saved, only to find Howard Tredenick with a mile of time to stick one into the back of the net and make it 3-0. At the Central Coast Leagues Club, scoring of a different kind in a $12,000 snooker tournament. 130 of the top-ranked amateur and professional players from around the country are taking part in the big event that also has an incentive $28,000 worth of prizes. Many current and former Australian champions are taking part, including Stan Gorski, Greg Jenkins and Peter Hawkes, and they are expected to feature in the semis and finals tomorrow.
Staff at the Country Road store in Perkins Street were working fervently this morning, repacking shelves and cleaning up the mess left by thieves who smashed their way into the shop.
From our investigations, they threw a brick through the front glass door and then entered through the glass door straight up the stairs into the menswear, where they removed the clothing from the various racks in the store.
This is the second time in 6 weeks the store has been robbed. In May, suit jackets and trousers valued at $30,000 were taken. Last night, menswear was again targeted, this time tracksuits and cotton jumpers. But the thieves' plans were foiled when a passerby spotted two of them inside the store.
Passerby heard the alarm sounded and went to investigate it, saw what was going on upstairs and confronted them, and they ran down the stairs, out the door and straight over the top of the passerby.
We were very lucky that someone actually heard the noise of the glass breaking, and then they were just disturbed, so they dropped everything and ran. But they did get a few things, yes.
Police believe the gang of up to 4 men knew exactly what clothing they wanted before entering the shop. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
"61-year-old Paul Morgan often spends his weekends with family on their country retreat west of Paterson, but last weekend he went alone. The alarm was raised late yesterday when he failed to return to Newcastle as planned. Mr Morgan's wife and son found him pinned under his dead horse, unconscious but breathing. It was a dark and misty night, making it awkward for the helicopter rescue crew to find the remote site.
We got good directions from the family. Our helicopter pilot got in contact with the farmhouse via the telephone in the helicopter, and the wife gave us directions as to power lines, trees, where the safe area was to land.
It's estimated the fall happened on Saturday morning. While Mr Morgan is an experienced rider, the horse was a nervous type. It's believed the animal dropped dead on the spot, trapping the rider in his saddle.
Why do you think he couldn't get out? With the horse being deceased, Peter, and such a large weight, there's no way he would have been able to move his leg. And we also think that he was unconscious on our arrival, and we're not sure whether he was unconscious from the period of time that he was there, or whether it was due to hitting his head or something when actually the horse fell.
Mr Morgan suffered a broken leg, ribs and hypothermia. The weather conditions could not have been worse through the ordeal. 3 days of drizzling rain and near freezing temperatures.
It's the worst weekend we've had. It's the coldest weekend we've had this year. It was 0 degrees the night before at Dungog, so he would have been out in that too. It would have been around about the same here.
Mr Morgan's condition tonight is described as critical. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Evidence was given by a cross-section of the community to Brian Burdekin during the one-day hearing at City Hall. Its purpose was to look at violations of the rights of the mentally ill.
Unfortunately, the evidence today suggests that there are major problems in Newcastle and in the Hunter region.
According to Brian Burdekin, 90% of people with a mental illness now live in the community. However, 70% of the resources are spent on people in institutions.
Governments didn't think ahead. I think the evidence strongly suggests, in terms of what we've heard this morning in the Newcastle and Hunter region, that the facilities and resources that have been made available to the community are grossly inadequate, and that there is still a very large proportion of the resources, in my view, quite inappropriately tied up in the older psychiatric hospitals.
Faye Rotherow and her friends are members of the Hamilton South Community Group. It liaises with the Department of Housing and offers assistance to local residents. Today they gave evidence to the inquiry. 2 of Faye's neighbours were mentally ill. After the wife suffered a stroke last year, she returned home where her husband tried to look after her.
I discovered that she was laying on her lounge with cockroaches on her all around the place, being fed milk that just was like yoghurt because it had curdled that much, cockroaches in food all over the table.
The group cared for the woman, however their evidence highlighted insufficient resources are available to the mentally ill and the community which more and more does the caring for them.
Just when it looked like the beasts had passed, one bull changed direction at the most dangerous point of the run, outside the gates to the main stadium. There was little the horrified onlookers could do except watch as the bull gored the man through a main artery in his thigh. Finally, he was thrown to the ground and amazingly was able to clamber to safety. He was rushed to hospital in a serious condition.
.200 golfers, including 50 professionals who've spent several weeks on the state's northwest tour, teed off at Muswellbrook, hoping against hope that the incessant drizzle of the morning would let up. They set off in conditions that bordered on unplayable. It's the second time Muswellbrook has hosted the event, and resident pro Greg Hanley was dressed for all weather conditions, obviously keen to see it through. Some did finish. David Stretton of Sydney sinking this putt to be 2 under on a decidedly spongy 18th, taking equal leadership with Bateman's Bay pro Michael Zilko on 70. Ultimately, the conditions prevailed and play was cancelled. The tournament will resume in hopefully more pleasant weather on Thursday, August 15.
The luxury apartment proposal was the idea of local businessman John Peshar. Last February, Newcastle Council approved the building of 4 apartments, a penthouse suite and an internal car park. However, the contract was never signed, and the Sydney owner Squire Investments has now decided to auction the building.
From the top of this building you really have a magnificent position. You're so close to the harbour and the ocean and the beaches, and yet you tie into the foreshore redevelopment scheme, which is so attractive.
The building was built at the turn of the century and used as a spice warehouse and packing store. If converted, it will play an integral part in the East End development.
I think everywhere you go around here now you see things happening, and it's a great place to be. The little restaurants, the apartments, etc. I see the East End becoming, one of the really nice small places in Newcastle to live.
It's prime real estate, which agent Colin Chapman sees no trouble in selling.
We've had interest from outside of Newcastle, from Melbourne, Sydney, Central Coast, but the majority of our interest has been from Novocastrian developers who are looking at a unique opportunity.
The building will be put to auction Thursday week at the Town Hall. It's expected to fetch around $500,000. But the new owner has a big job ahead. It's estimated around $1.7 million is needed to convert the building to apartments. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The windswept grounds of Stockton made for a bleak night's training session, but prop Mark Sargent could find himself in far colder surrounds if he takes up an offer to play in England full-time next year.
I've had preliminary talks with the Leeds club. They approached me last week, so I've had a couple of other offers from Sydney clubs as well. So I'm still sort of kicking everything around at the moment.
The rampaging front row would be a sensation in the English competition, as he showed when he toured the old dart with the Kangaroos. He's also certain to attract an offer well in excess of what any Australian club could consider. Fortunately, Sargent says money won't be the sole factor in his decision. The Knights still have the inside running in the race to retain his services, but only if Alan McMahon's full-time replacement is named without delay.
There are a number of guys that are up for renegotiation with Newcastle, and I think that'll be a condition with all of them. Everyone likes to know what's sort of going on player and coaching wise.
A shift of pressure and air masses across the continent transformed Mount Royal into a fairy tale landscape. At least 25 millimetres fell, turning the everyday into a living postcard. As spectacular as this is, it's not likely to last long. Even though it's snowing now, there's more rain forecast, and by tomorrow it could be gone. Chris Barth, NBN News.
Brendan Dooley was in everything in the first half, receiving a caution from referee Mick Benson after this tackle off the ball. Then incredibly only minutes later, Dooley again appeared to be late with the tackle, this time on Luke Stansfield, and soon after received his marching orders, charged with attacking the head of an opponent without the ball. But then real controversy as Peter Walsh, the Lakes United captain coach, was dismissed from the field charged with misconduct, striking a touch judge. 10 minutes before half-time, a minor scuffle broke out, and as touch judge Steve Cheeseman ran in to report a couple of players, it is alleged contact was made between Walsh and Cheeseman. Touch judge Cheeseman's after-match dismissal report read, "I was running onto the field to report the above player for striking an opponent when he, Peter Walsh number 6, struck me across the shoulder chest area of my body." Referee Benson's report stated that Lakes number 6 swung his arm into the touch judge, striking him on the shoulder chest area of the body. Lakes officials were astounded that Walsh was dismissed and will vigorously defend the charges after viewing videotape evidence of the incident. As far as the football was concerned, Lakes were far too good for the Bulldogs, and ironically it was Walsh who scored a try himself before being dismissed and setting this one up for Brett Botham by drawing the defence, and Botham raced away to score.
They were jumping for joy in Hamilton today. Reduced to rubble by the earthquake, the suburb has now never looked better, and the reopening of the Alexander Watchtower was reason enough for the residents to take to the streets. Spirits were sky high, and the police took advantage of the situation to introduce the public to the people really responsible for crime in their area. A 7-man beat police patrol has been established in the suburb, and the boys in blue made plenty of friends during their first day on the new job. While the rest of the force was celebrating the introduction of beat policing to Hamilton, members of the rescue squad were considering handing in their overalls, with Police Minister Ted Pickering determined to give rescue responsibility to the fire brigade. Many are thinking of leaving the unit early.
There's nothing to stop them at all. A few of the members of the rescue squad have wanted to join the beat police and wanted to join the detectives, and they haven't been able to, and they would rather do rescue work than do those sort of things. But if there's going to be no rescue squad, well, naturally they're starting to look at different avenues.
By choosing to work part-time in police rescue, officers forego the opportunity to specialise in other, more lucrative sections of the force. Many consider the excitement involved worth the sacrifice. But if the unit is to be dissolved, a sidestep onto the normal career path seems the best option. If, as threatened, the defection happens before the state's firefighters are fully trained, the city could be left in a perilous position.
I'd hate to think, I really would. We have the ambulance rescue squad, which are an extremely good service, and really there's only the police rescue squad as well.
Bastille Day may have had its origins more than 200 years ago and half a world away, but the French National Day was a good enough excuse for some to celebrate. One of the biggest Bastille Day parties was held on the South Stane in Newcastle Harbour. There was no storming at the bastions, only the bar, but the Gallic influence was everywhere on board. The French flag fluttering, tricolour balloons, berets, Foreign Legion films, and of course plenty of wine and food, including frog's legs. Some imbued with the Gallic spirit took the chance to practice some shaky French. Others burst into a rousing rendition of the national anthem. The murdered woman lived alone in this Niagara Park unit. Police found her body just after 9 this morning in the bedroom of a flat. The woman had wounds on her chest and injuries to her head and throat. Police believe she was bashed, then stabbed to death. A 28-year-old man from the Sydney suburb of Quakers Hill is being questioned by Gosford Police. As darkness descended, 50 men were preparing to work through the night, clearing 6 derailed coal carriages from the main northern line. The carriages, each carrying 100 tonnes of coal, tipped over this afternoon near Maitland, spilling their load and tearing up 800 metres of track. An SRA spokesman said the derailment was caused by an axle breaking. Rail services have been subsequently thrown into disarray. The spokesman said the line from Maitland to Muswellbrook should be clear by 2 tomorrow morning, while the rails in the opposite direction will not be ready until 6 tomorrow night.